Picture your average family next door. There's Andrew Cross, pushing 45, with a hairline that's seen better days. He's in decent shape, but you won't catch him on the cover of Men's Health anytime soon. He could stand to lose a few pounds and prefers contacts, though he's not quite at the reading glasses stage yet. His wife, Catherine, is also 45. She's got a bit of a tummy and curves in all the right places, which Andrew actually digs. She's not turning heads on the street, but she's not scaring anyone away either. Just your everyday woman who insists on being called Catherine, no nicknames allowed. Their daughter, Claire, is 21 and killing it as a college senior. She's put on a few since her high school volleyball days, but who hasn't? She's all about women's rights and independence, but still hits up the bank of mom and dad when needed. Andrew's the sole breadwinner, and things are tight. To keep Claire from drowning in student loans, she's living at home. But that doesn't stop Catherine and Claire from living it up. While Andrew's cruising around in an old F-150, they're rolling in fancy rides. The house? It's got barely any equity left, thanks to some home loans that funded their lavish lifestyle. Their neighborhood's your typical suburban setup, complete with the occasional block party. They're not exactly BFFs with the neighbors, except for the family next door. Their daughter, Molly, is Claire's ride or die. After Claire started college, Andrew felt like someone had punched a hole in his chest. They'd been thick as thieves, and now there was this gaping void. Even his volunteer gig couldn't fill it. One night, he decided to confront Catherine. "You happy?" he asked out of the blue. "Happy with what?" she replied, looking confused. "With your life. You've been distant lately, lost that spark. I miss the time we used to spend with Claire. I guess I'm just bored. What about us? Am I doing something wrong?" Catherine assured him, "We're fine. I've got no complaints. What's with all the questions? I just want you to be happy. Maybe you could see a counselor? Might help you find some balance, boost your mood." She mulled it over. "I'll think about it," she said, and Andrew dropped it. 2 weeks later, Catherine started weekly sessions with a life coach. You might think Andrew was hoping this would spice things up in the bedroom, but nah. They stuck to their usual twice-a-week routine. Normal? Who knows? Andrew had never talked about his sex life with anyone, and he wasn't about to start prying into his friend's business. Their neighbors to the south, David and Lisa, were in their 60s. David couldn't fix a leaky faucet to save his life, and Lisa's baking had added a few inches to Andrew's waistline. One day, while Andrew was fixing David's sauna pump, he overheard them chatting. That sliding patio door's making that scratching noise again. Unless Catherine's back from her mom's, it must be Claire. Haven't seen him in a while, they said. Sitting in the backyard gazebo, Andrew couldn't help but eavesdrop on Claire's conversation with Catherine. "He's inside somewhere. His car's still here," Claire said. Andrew's blood started to boil when he heard her continue. "God, Mom, you're so old-fashioned. Give Jake a try. Molly says he's wild. Maybe that's what you need to spice things up in the bedroom. You've been complaining to our daughter about our love life? That's messed up," Andrew thought, seething with anger. The next pause was due to Andrew's rage reaching boiling point. These two were plotting to wreck his marriage. What had he done to deserve this? "Okay, well, let me know. Love you too. Bye-bye," Claire concluded. Andrew's anger surged. He hadn't hurt himself fixing that frustrating pump, but he was fuming. The entire week at home was a disaster. He went out of his way to irritate Catherine and Claire. It worked, and he spent most of the week holed up in his office or out in the garage, sharpening and cleaning his power tools. He didn't cancel his hunting trip, though. He had someone keep tabs on Catherine's activities. Seeing pictures of Claire, Tom, and some skinny dude entering the house around noon on Saturday didn't exactly lift his spirits. Claire and Tom left around 2, and the skinny guy took off at 4. When Andrew got back late Sunday, Catherine tried to be all lovey-dovey, but he wasn't having it. While it didn't prove anything, he noticed Catherine was sitting weird, with her legs crossed and leaning left more than usual. She seemed a bit uncomfortable. Later in the kitchen, Claire sealed their fate by playfully slapping Catherine's behind, and they both giggled with fake coughs. Andrew felt a weight on his chest, worried that the people he went hunting with might have exposed him to something. He decided to crash on the living room couch to avoid Catherine. In the morning, he told Catherine he was heading to the doctor, claiming he was having trouble breathing. His boss had no problem with him taking the day off. His plan was to fake a COVID diagnosis, giving him time to set his exit strategy in motion. With his accumulated sick leave and vacation time, he could stretch it out until their traditional Christmas Eve dinner. A COVID diagnosis usually keeps people at arm's length. Did he actually have COVID? He wasn't sure. He was fully vaxxed and felt fine, but his heart was in pieces, and he wanted to put some distance between himself and 4 people. While his lungs checked out, he checked into an extended stay hotel. He wasn't about to live like a pauper. Catherine seemed relieved when he told her he'd be out of quarantine in time for Christmas Eve. She and Claire called him twice a day, trying to avoid tipping him off to his plans. He was polite but pretended to be tired to get off the phone. He spent his time plotting revenge and getting his ducks in a row, like updating wills, beneficiaries, and emergency contacts. Apartment hunting was a challenge, driving home the finality of his decision to divorce Catherine and push Claire into the real world. When you're consumed by anger, all sorts of thoughts cross your mind, many of which could land you behind bars, which didn't fit with his future plans. The idea of hiring an escort to set up Tom came from a news story about a company using similar tactics to get rid of unwanted employees. It was a double-edged sword that would inevitably hurt Claire, but he believed she had it coming. Their artificial Christmas tree glowed with blinking red, white, and green lights, and the pine cones filled the room with a holiday scent. They gathered around the dining room table for their Christmas Eve tradition, one they'd kept up for 23 years, the first 2 without Claire. Catherine had prepared a meal that now sat before them. Normally, they'd offer a short prayer of thanks, but not tonight. Andrew stood up to speak, and it wasn't going to be a cheerful toast. "Tom, how's Emily?" he asked, watching Tom's face drain of color. Claire turned her curious gaze toward him. Claire and Tom had been together since high school, and it seemed like they'd be together forever, but that was about to change. Tom stammered, pretending not to know Emily. Andrew pushed further, describing the raven-haired beauty with ruby lips Tom was with last Sunday night. Tom was stunned, caught like a deer in headlights, his denial unconvincing. Andrew played an audio clip from his phone, where a voice could be heard saying, "Okay, Emily, you're awesome. Don't stop. God, I'm coming again." It was unmistakably Tom's voice. Claire exploded in anger, accusing Tom of betrayal and demanding he leave. Before Tom could stand, Andrew forced him back into his chair. Catherine and Andrew held Claire back from attacking him. Andrew told Catherine to take Claire into the other room to calm her down, explaining that he and Tom needed to talk. Catherine escorted Claire out, but not quietly, as Claire's profanities echoed off the walls. It took just a few minutes for Andrew to lay out the situation to Tom. He was to warn Jake to stay far away from Andrew, or Jake would regret it deeply. Tom understood his position and limited options. He agreed to do one last thing for Andrew. Andrew called out to the kitchen, asking Catherine and Claire to return. They looked shocked and tearful. "Let me explain how I got that recording," Andrew said. "Tom, her name isn't Emily. I don't know her real name. She's an escort I hired to seduce you and record the encounter. There's also a video if you'd like to see it." "Daddy, what the hell? You hired her?" Claire shouted. "I did, sweetie. How does it feel to be betrayed, to be stabbed in the back?" Andrew admitted. Catherine made a small noise, and Claire's eyes briefly flicked toward and away from her mother. Both were in tears. "Tom, do you have something to say?" Andrew asked, turning on the video mode of his phone. Tom stood, took the folder in front of him, and addressed Catherine. "Catherine Cross, you've been served," he said, handing her the folder. Catherine looked like she might faint or vomit. The pinecone scent couldn't mask the impact of Tom handing Catherine divorce papers. While Claire and Catherine consoled each other in the master bedroom, Andrew took charge outside. Claire's early graduation gift was loaded onto a carrier and driven away. Everything from her car was left in a trash bag on the front porch. Catherine's BMW followed, but her belongings were transferred to a 23-year-old sedan, symbolizing their 23 years of marriage. Andrew's lawyer reminded him that he had to provide transportation for Catherine. With their credit cards paid off and canceled, Andrew canceled both of Claire's cards as well, since he was the co-signer. He took another shot of bourbon. He canceled their cell phones too, and gave Catherine a basic phone with limited talk time and text messages. Claire received no such consideration. They both kept their fancy iPhones. In the garage, Andrew hammered a for sale sign into the front yard. He couldn't actually sell the house yet since Catherine's name was on the title, but he wanted her to know what their future held. Instead of listening to the Christmas music playing in the living room by the tree, Andrew retreated to the basement. Sitting in the dark was comforting, especially when he heard the commotion above as they realized none of their possessions were working. They called Andrew some less than Christian names, mild compared to what he had been shouting in his empty hotel room while preparing for this day. "Andrew, we need to talk," they said. They speculated that he might have gone for a walk, seeing his car still at home, but not in its usual spot. They noticed an unfamiliar car parked outside and wondered if he had taken it. With their phones not working and credit cards canceled, they decided to see if Lisa would let them use her phone. Their calm returned, but it was a tactical error. Andrew locked the entry doors. Now they were outside without working phones or credit cards. Both had left their purses inside, so they had no identification. Andrew felt no remorse shredding their driver's licenses. Petty, perhaps, but it would cause them significant discomfort. Refilling his shot glass, Andrew turned on the TV and watched a few minutes of a cheesy feel-good special. Their situation couldn't be farther from the heartwarming story on screen. Sitting in silence seemed like a better choice. There was a commotion at the front door when Catherine and Claire returned. It was then that Claire, whom Andrew no longer claimed as his own, realized what was in the trash bag on the porch. "Oh my God, this is everything I had in my car. Daddy got rid of my car!" Claire shrieked. Catherine wasn't buying it. He wouldn't do that. It's just not something he would do. "Well, Mom, maybe the reason your car is missing is that he sold it, too." "I'll be mad if he did. I love that car," Claire yelled, her voice trembling with fury. The doorbell rang incessantly, interrupting their heated exchange. "Andrew, open this door right now. It's freezing out here," Catherine's voice cut through the noise. Andrew shouted back, "Well, Catherine, the keys to your new car are in the ignition. That orange and green Malibu parked out front is your new ride. All your belongings from the old car are in there, too. I heard the heater takes a while to warm up, but it has a full tank of gas. Maybe you can go stay with Jake. I'm sure he still has a thing for you." There was a moment of stunned silence before Catherine's voice wavered. "Andrew, please let me explain." Andrew could hear her desperation. "Catherine, I've heard enough. Merry Christmas. Now leave and take your traitorous daughter with you," he replied coldly. The old Malibu roared to life, its muffler sounding like it was about to fall off. It didn't surprise Andrew. The guy practically gave it to him to get it off his hands. Without any further drama, the two traitors drove away from the house. As Andrew watched them leave, a small part of him hoped the old car's muffler wouldn't give them any trouble. But who was he kidding? An hour later, Andrew's phone lit up with his father-in-law's number. They'd never really hit it off, so he let it go to voicemail. "Hey, Andrew. I've got a couple of upset women here. Thought you might shed some light on the situation. Call me back. By the way, Merry Christmas," his message said. Andrew muted his phone and sipped some spiked eggnog, gradually coming down from his adrenaline rush. The blinking lights of the fake tree lulled him to sleep. Christmas morning dawned cold and bright. The dishes from the previous night still cluttered the dining table, but the microwave did a good job of reheating his ham and cheesy potatoes. Gifts lay unopened under the tree, meant for an after-dinner celebration that would never happen. Had anyone noticed he hadn't given a single gift or opened theirs? He doubted it. Instead, Andrew gathered his most cherished belongings, leaving any family photos scattered on the ground. It took Catherine a few days to track him down at the hotel. The sun had set, and a bitter breeze blew outside. When he answered the door, leaving the latch on, he half expected a sales pitch. But it was Catherine, pale-faced and without her usual makeup. "Andrew, please don't close the door," she pleaded. "What do you want, Catherine?" He replied coldly. "Can I come in? I need to explain," she begged. "No," he responded firmly. "Please, Andrew, your neighbors don't need to hear this," she continued, her voice cracking. "What part of no don't you understand?" "I'd be happy to explain it to you, Catherine," he snapped. "Okay, let me start by saying I'm sorry. I can't explain my actions," she began. "What actions are you talking about, Catherine?" he pressed. "Andrew, not out here. Let me come in and talk about it," she urged softly. "You had something with Jake?" "Well, isn't that just perfect?" he reacted. Her eyes widened. "You didn't know?" she asked, shocked. "I suspected, but now it's confirmed. Actions have consequences, Catherine." "Wait, you were going to divorce me without any proof?" she asked, incredulous. "I guessed right, didn't I? Have you found an attorney yet?" he continued. "I'm working on it, but we don't need a divorce." "I'll do anything to save our marriage," she pleaded. "It's too late for that. Why didn't you decide to do anything to save our marriage a month ago?" "It's because you're selfish and think you're above consequences." "Did you tell me immediately? A day later? A week later? How many others have there been?" he demanded. Catherine recoiled at the venom in his voice. "That was the only time, you have to believe me. One stupid decision shouldn't doom our marriage," she cried. "Which stupid decision? I count many. Planning to cheat might get you a reprieve. Cheating is a deal breaker. Hiding your cheating ensured no chance of reconciliation. Worst of all, you involved our daughter. I want nothing to do with her anymore. This is all on you. If you had kept your bedroom matters private, she would never have been involved." "I hate you," he spat. Some neighbors were watching the drama unfold. "Andrew, I said I'm sorry. How can I make this up to you?" Catherine asked desperately. "You can't. I hope I'm better off without you. Maybe I will be. Maybe I won't. But it's on my terms. Divorce your cheating self and move on, understand?" he retorted. "Please, Andrew. I know you're hurting and angry. But don't do anything for a couple of weeks. It was just one afternoon. What can I do to convince you?" she pleaded. "Just leave and never bother me again. Now, if you'll excuse me, halftime is over and the bowl game is starting again. Thanks for stopping by." "Not," he said, closing the door. Catherine knocked and begged softly, but his noise-canceling headphones did their job. He didn't know how long it lasted, but she was gone by morning. 11 months later, Andrew sat at his one-bedroom apartment, continuing the Christmas Eve tradition alone by choice. A simple meal that he cooked himself after getting the hang of cooking. They say you get stabbed in the back, but in reality, it shatters your heart, ego, and confidence. His self-respect remained intact. Many nights he wondered if he overreacted. Not once did he agree with that thought. He became disposable. So he left. Case closed. His time in the limbo of divorce left him feeling defeated. He was often irritable, and his boss had to reprimand him for snapping at coworkers. As time passed, he withdrew from social life and became a recluse. His coworkers learned to keep their distance, and he focused on doing his job well. He skipped company parties. Friends attempted to set him up on dates, but he turned them down one by one, and eventually they stopped calling. His self-pity seemed never-ending. He took up running, and the sight of his earbuds discouraged people from approaching him. Between his new hobby and cooking for himself, he found a semblance of peace. After the divorce, he realized he needed to put on some weight since none of his old clothes fit him anymore. Occasionally, a coworker would compliment his appearance, but it rarely led to anything more. The divorce dragged on for 9 months, and their house sold quickly. Instead of monthly support, Catherine got a significant portion of the sale proceeds. Claire and Tom went their separate ways, with Tom blaming Andrew for the Emily setup. "It's always someone else's fault with people like him. I wasn't there with Emily, he was. He fell for it, just like most men his age would, Andrew thought. Claire left him angry voicemails, but he never returned her calls. Maybe someday he would, but he wasn't betting on it. He didn't receive an invitation to her graduation, nor did he attend. The divorce hit Catherine hard since she hadn't worked full-time since they got married. Andrew's lawyer managed to drag out the financial negotiations, ensuring she received as little as possible. Once the house sold, he paid off the maintenance arrears the court ruled she was owed. Her comfortable lifestyle was gone, and so was his. During some of their lawyer meetings, Catherine tried to convince him she was sorry and foolish, but he remained cold, which led to a few tears. Hate is a strong emotion, and he couldn't control his. A year later, Andrew kept up the Christmas Eve tradition in his apartment. Chloe, a friend who'd been through a similar situation, joined him. They weren't romantically involved. He wasn't ready for that. After dinner, they danced in the living room. The closeness made him miss the warmth of a woman's touch. But after 10 songs, Chloe wiped away a tear and left. They were both too broken. Claire's voicemails changed in tone, sounding more apologetic, but he never called her back. His mother let slip that Catherine had moved in with someone new. Surprisingly, he felt indifferent. Slowly, Andrew started making small talk with people again. Former coworkers avoided him, and new ones found him odd. Making friends was tough, but he managed to connect with Chloe, and they stayed friends. In late January, he received a letter from Claire. He debated opening it, but curiosity won. Inside was a short note and a selfie. "Daddy, I'm sorry for what I did to you. As you can see in the picture, I'm pregnant. I was wondering if you could find it in your heart to include a grandchild in your life. If not, I understand. Love, Claire." The return address was a few counties over, and there was no mention of a husband. Andrew felt torn. He resented what she had done, but he had always wanted grandchildren. It took him a few weeks to respond. Meanwhile, Chloe and he parted ways. They both knew they were just leaning on each other. She decided to move far away and start fresh. With a few lingering hugs, she left his life. To keep his sanity, Andrew took up pickleball at the rec center. It's like tennis, but with different rules. Eventually, he played with people of similar skill levels, which felt like being back in junior high. During one game, he accidentally hit Erin, one of the players. Her friends teased her, saying he should kiss it better. He blew her a few kisses, and as they were leaving, she asked if he could buy her a drink. She said he seemed very quiet and shy. They walked to a nearby cafe and continued chatting. Erin was a great conversationalist, unlike him. Eventually, she asked if he was seeing anyone, and he admitted he wasn't sure if he ever would again. "Did she die or leave you?" Erin asked gently. "She cheated on me, and I couldn't accept it. It's been a few years, but I guess I'm still not over it," he replied. "What about you? Are you dating anyone?" "No one," she said, surprised. "I've been on dates, but that's about it." "When was your last date?" he inquired. "I haven't been on a proper date since we separated. I've had people over for dinner, but that's it," Erin shared. "When did your marriage end?" he asked. 26 months ago in December," she answered. "Pretty sad, isn't it?" "Not really," he reassured her. "When my ex left me for a younger man, it took me a couple of years to get the confidence to try again." The conversation made his palms sweaty. Erin noticed and suggested they change the subject. "Why did you start playing pickleball?" he asked. "My self-pity was getting old, so I decided to try something new," Erin explained. "That's how I got into it, too. My friends convinced me, and now I enjoy it." "How about you?" he shared. "Yeah, I got a paddle, and playing helps me come out of my shell." "Well, I have to go. See you tomorrow at 4 p.m., she said. "Sure, nice talking with you, Erin," he replied. "You too, Andrew. Hang in there. Things will get better," she encouraged. That evening, feeling better about himself, he finally responded to Claire. "Claire, I'm willing to try. You and I will never be close again, but I'd like to at least meet my grandchild. Let me know when the time is right, but I will not be in the same room as your mother," he wrote back to Claire. From the picture, he estimated a May or June delivery date. He wasn't sure if Claire got his response since he hadn't received any reply from her. The following day at pickleball, Aaron was noticeably flirtatious, and a few other women joined in the fun. It felt good to be noticed. After hitting a particularly good shot, Aaron said, "You know, Andrew, that shirt looks great on you. Bet it looks even better off." The women giggled as his face turned crimson. He replied, "Funny you should say that, Aaron. I was thinking those yoga pants look great on you, but they might look even better off." Laughter erupted as Aaron turned beet red. The ladies started chanting, "Take it off, take it off." So with a grin, he took off his shirt, earning a few whistles. Aaron wagged her finger at him, mouthing, "You're terrible." And he blew her a kiss. After the games, the playful banter continued. Aaron eventually asked if he would buy her a drink. "I was just about to ask you," Andrew said. Aaron playfully remarked, "Nice yoga pants, huh? Pretty proud of yourself, aren't you?" As they enjoyed their drinks, Andrew gathered the nerve to ask Aaron out for dinner and a movie, expecting rejection. To his relief, she agreed. Having been out of the dating scene for over 27 years, he felt nervous and out of place initially, but over time he relaxed and his old self began to emerge. After several dates, Aaron suggested he spend the night. One evening, Aaron caught him off guard with a personal question. "Who are you thinking of when we're together?" she asked. Andrew paused, then replied, "I'm grateful for you and often wonder what you see in someone like me." Their relationship deepened and they became more intimate. Aaron eventually introduced him to her family and grandchildren. Initially, it was awkward due to their protectiveness, but they warmed up to him over time. In early June, Aaron cuddled up to Andrew in bed and hinted at celebrating their closeness. As the moment grew more passionate, he revealed that Claire had given birth to a girl 2 days ago. Their passions flared briefly and they made love for an extended time. The next day, Andrew sent flowers to Claire to celebrate her new motherhood. A day later, he received an overnight letter from her full of sincere apologies and a desire to reconnect. She spoke of understanding the lessons he tried to teach her and the changes she had undergone. She also mentioned her daughter, Laura, and the hope for them to reunite. Andrew shared the letter with Aaron, who found Claire's words heartfelt. She asked what he intended to do. He expressed his concern about the potential impact on their relationship, and Aaron responded with a warm hug and a loving kiss, emphasizing that letting go of the past was crucial for their future together. With Aaron's support, Andrew knocked on Claire's door, catching her by surprise. They shared a tender hug and stepped inside her apartment. He held Laura, who didn't cry, reminding him of how delicate baby hands and feet are. Aaron asked about Claire's marital status, and Claire explained that Laura's father wasn't ready to commit. Throughout the evening, Claire and Andrew kept a respectful distance. Before leaving, Aaron encouraged him to express his love to Claire. He went back to her apartment, hugged her tightly, and told her he still loved her. 6 months later, their traditional Christmas Eve dinner was held in Andrew's apartment with Aaron, Claire, and him holding Laura. He offered the Christmas blessing and they shared a joyful meal and exchanged gifts. Andrew and Aaron spent the night at her place, marking a new chapter in their relationship. A year later, they celebrated Christmas Eve at Aaron's house and life had moved forward. Andrew found contentment in this new chapter of his life. As time passed, Andrew and Aaron's relationship continued to grow stronger. They found themselves discussing the possibility of marriage, something neither had expected to consider again. Claire became a more regular part of Andrew's life, and he grew to adore his granddaughter, Laura. The little girl's infectious laughter seemed to heal old wounds. Andrew's relationship with Catherine remained distant but civil. They occasionally crossed paths at Laura's birthday parties, exchanging polite nods but little else. One sunny afternoon, while pushing Laura on the swing at the park, Andrew caught sight of Catherine watching from a distance. For a moment, their eyes met, and a flicker of understanding passed between them. Aaron, noticing the exchange, squeezed Andrew's hand reassuringly. "You okay?" she asked softly. Andrew nodded, realizing he truly was. "Yeah, I am," he replied, turning his attention back to Laura's delighted squeals. As Laura grew older, Andrew found himself cherishing the role of grandfather. He taught her how to ride a bike, helped with her math homework, and even showed up at her school plays. Erin, though not biologically related, became Grandma Erin to Laura, showering the child with love and attention. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Erin turned to Andrew. "You know, I never thought I'd have this again," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Andrew pulled her close. "Me neither," he admitted. "But I'm glad we found each other." Their wedding was a small, intimate affair. Claire stood as Andrew's best woman, while Laura, now 5, gleefully scattered flower petals down the aisle. As Andrew recited his vows, he caught sight of Claire wiping away a tear. In that moment, he felt a surge of gratitude for the twists and turns that had led him to this point. The reception was filled with laughter and joy. Even Tom showed up, offering Andrew a heartfelt apology and congratulations. As the night wore on, Andrew found himself alone for a moment, watching his new family interact. Erin was chatting animatedly with his mother, while Claire twirled Laura on the dance floor. A sense of peace washed over him. The pain of the past hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had faded, replaced by something new and beautiful. Later that night, as he and Erin slow danced under the stars, she whispered, "Thank you for taking a chance on love again." Andrew pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "Thank you for showing me it was worth it," he replied, before pulling her in for a kiss. The years that followed were filled with both joys and challenges. Andrew and Erin navigated their new life together, learning to blend their families and routines. They traveled, something neither had done much of before. They explored European cities, hiked in national parks, and even tried their hand at scuba diving. Laura continued to be a bright spot in their lives. Andrew beamed with pride at her school graduations, from elementary to high school. When Laura announced she was heading to college, Andrew felt a familiar pang of loss. But this time, it was tempered by the excitement of watching her grow and chase her dreams. Claire, too, had found happiness. She married a kind man who adored both her and Laura. Andrew gave her away at the wedding, a moment that brought tears to both their eyes. As for Catherine, time had softened the edges of their past. While they never rekindled their friendship, they managed to coexist peacefully at family events. One Christmas Eve, as they all gathered at Andrew and Erin's house, Andrew found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The room was filled with the warmth of family: Claire and her husband, Laura home from college, Erin's children and their families, and even Catherine and her new partner. As he looked around at the faces of those he loved, Andrew realized that the pain of his past had led him to this moment of joy. Erin caught his eye from across the room and smiled, as if reading his thoughts. He smiled back, feeling a wave of love and contentment wash over him. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Erin turned to him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, noticing his contemplative mood. Andrew pulled her close. "Just how grateful I am," he replied. "For you, for our family, for everything." Erin kissed him softly. "Me too," she whispered. "Merry Christmas, Andrew." As they drifted off to sleep, Andrew thought about the twists and turns his life had taken. The betrayal that had once shattered his world had ultimately led him to this moment of peace and happiness. He realized that sometimes, the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a better one. With that thought, he closed his eyes, ready to embrace whatever the future might bring. The next morning, as the family gathered around the Christmas tree, Laura announced her engagement. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Andrew hugged his granddaughter tightly, feeling a mix of joy and nostalgia. It seemed like just yesterday she was learning to walk, and now she was starting her own family. As he watched Laura show off her ring, Andrew caught Claire's eye. They shared a knowing look, both remembering the rocky path that had led them here. Later, as they all sat down for Christmas breakfast, Andrew stood to make a toast. He looked around the table, taking in the faces of those he loved. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "The ones we're born with, and the ones we choose. May we always remember that love, forgiveness, and second chances are the greatest gifts of all." The room echoed with "to family" as glasses clinked together. Andrew sat down, feeling Aaron's hands squeeze his under the table. As the day wore on, filled with laughter, good food, and the chaos of gift-giving, Andrew found himself continually amazed at how life had turned out. He thought back to that painful Christmas Eve so many years ago, when he thought his world had ended. If someone had told him then that he'd be here now, surrounded by love and happiness, he wouldn't have believed it.